Alright guys, so there has been a lot of research done on how to make zone wars. And if you're new to creative, then making the map is the easy part, although it may seem hard to you. So I wanted to go over a quick tutorial on zone wars start to finish. It's going to be a series of these videos, and you can utilize whichever ones you like, but really wanted to go through start to finish because it seems like Zone Wars is getting a lot of traction, and there's a lot of mysteries to how to create, develop your map, how to add things, most of all how to score things. So this tutorial should make it pretty simple to follow and go through, and the mechanics of the game, you know, obviously you'll need to learn some of that, but hopefully this helps you guys. So first things first, you enter creative, go into play mode, and you go to your custom map area. You go to this little keyboard here and use the console. And then what you want to do is just create a new island and choose basically whatever starter island you want. So this is pretty much how your island's gonna look. I like these ones here. They have, you know, a river running through it. If you wanted a snowy island or just a regular island, here you go. Some desert islands. There's various options here. So choose which one you want your zone wars to look like, and you can be creative with that. Alright, and then confirm. I'm not going to confirm because I already have my island, so I'm just going to escape out of that. Alright, so then your island's going to show up here, and you're going to enter your island. Pretty simple so far. Hopefully everyone's following. Now my island is somewhat developed, but I want to show you around a little bit and then show you how to create all these different things which make your island work. And most of this stuff is invisible once gameplay happens, but it's imperative to have it in order to make your gameplay work. So the first things first, we're going to build our spawn points. Alright, so in creative normal mode, you have basically 16 different possibilities. 16 different people can be in the game. So you need 16 different spawn points, unless of course your Zone Wars is going to spawn people on top of each other, which would defeat the purpose of Zone Wars and create fights that you don't necessarily want to have. So first things first, we're going to create 16 little places. Now I created these little huts based on Lucky Landing. Lucky Landing was one of my favorite places in the old map, so I wanted to, you know, make an adage to that. So these little huts are my way of bringing back Lucky Landing. However, you could create anything. It could be an open spawn point. It could be a wooden hut with a door. Pretty much whatever you want to create. You're just going to create these little square huts. Now I put in some risers because placing floors on flat ground, on uneven ground is not easy. So you create these little risers to create like a nice flat area for your hut to sit on. Again, it does not need to be a hut, but it could be just a flat area. But I do recommend making a 2-space hut, like a 2 by 1 basically square. The reason for that is as we develop this, you're gonna have an area where they spawn that you kind of want to be black, and then an area where they exit the hut, which is a door. If you spawn them right here, you know, if there was a hut across the way, people would be able to, you know, immediately shoot the person, and that's no fun for anybody involved. So when I build my huts, just so you know, I usually place the doors not facing each other. So this door faces the side of this building, this door faces open space, this door faces open space. So really when you spawn and you come out the front door, you're not facing somebody else that is also coming out the front door in your Zone War. So that's kind of how I develop my huts. Now you might ask, well, where do I get the pieces for the huts? When you first enter your island, it's going to be blank. So it's kind of important to go over to the edge of your island, not too far where you fall off the island, but go over to the edge of your island and start by just building floors. Alright, so we're gonna build some floors. Right, actually we're going to build floors a little higher than that. So we're going to build a wall first, and then floors on top of it. Okay, and then you're just going to build like this whole area of floors in order to make a staging area. Okay, now this staging area is going to hold all your templates for whatever you're building. Alright, so that's good enough for now. So now we have the staging area. So then you want to go into the creative menu. On my keyboard it's tab. You can see on the left it says tab inventory. I think on controller it's Y, or PlayStation controller, I'm not sure, triangle maybe. I don't know all the controller controls, but on the keyboard it's tab by default, so whatever your bind is set to, really. So inventory is where you want to go. Alright, then you want up here in creative, and on the left you can see there's a bunch of different listings for the prefabs or the galleries. So these are the two we want to pay attention to, prefabs or galleries. Prefabs are basically houses that have been pre-built. They come from different areas in the map. You've probably seen some of these in the game, but prefabs are going to be anything already created, so houses, buildings, trees, that kind of thing. The galleries are kind of the pieces to those buildings, so if you wanted to make something really custom, you could choose one of the design elements within creative and literally build all of the walls individually. So what I did to make my huts is I came down here and I went to Lucky Landing and I grabbed this gallery and I put it into my quick bar number 1 or number 2. Well, I did number 1 last time, but it for some reason went into number 2. Alright, so then we go back and now we have number 2. You can see in the bottom left hand corner, number 2 is the prefab. So you want to be on your phone, and again this is dependent on your keybind, but you want to basically be on the phone icon. And then your prefab will show up, so you can hit number 2 and it gives you this square. Now this is what we're going to place on the staging area. As you can see, my staging area isn't big enough, so it's going to look a little odd, but we're just going to place it right like that, I guess. Okay, so now we have all our pieces. You go over to your piece, the one you want to use. Let's say I wanted to use this wall. I am going to copy it by left clicking. Again, this might be different on your controller, but once you have it copied you'll see like the red image. Okay, and then you go to wherever you want to build it and you can build your walls. So again, you build your huts. Okay, my input is not working great. Okay, there we go. So then once you have all your huts built, the basic functions, and again these risers exist in here. Let me see if I can find it. There's the risers I used. You could use these ones, which are brown versus red, very similar. You have your roof lines, you have your side roof, so on and so forth. Here's the door if you didn't want to use this circle. But all the different templates have different options, so you can kind of build what you want. You can put a staircase on it if you wanted, so on and so forth. So again, once you get your huts built, you need 16 of them. Now, one of my biggest problems when building the huts was where to place them, and let me go up here so you can see where I place them. So if you look at my huts, they seem as though they're very close, and you do want them to be somewhat close, because one of the problems I had was when I'm building the storm circles in one of the future steps, you have to make sure that all of these huts exist in the first storm circle. Otherwise, when someone spawns, they're automatically in spawn, they start losing health, they scream at you and tell you your map is crap. So we want to make sure that they all exist in the storm circle, and the easiest way to do that is to put these close. Now mine are actually kind of far. I probably would want to put one maybe right there and maybe one right there to get some of these outliers tucked in a little bit. But remember, your storm circle is always a circle, so you could technically start all of these on the way outside of the map and make it so that the storm circle covers the whole map. So that's completely your option, but just something to watch out for. Make sure they're somewhat close. All right. Once you have your huts built, you now have to create an area for people to enter the island. So there's two concepts. One is you enter the island, right? That's when you jump into the little rift from your creative menu. And the second is after you're in your island when you start the game, and that's spawn on start. So first you want to make an area. You don't want people kind of running around the map and doing things at first, or maybe you do, but for me, I wanted everybody in one area so I could, if I'm starting the map, I can count how many people are there, I can make sure everybody's in, so on and so forth. So what I did was I created this little hut, or this big hut I should say, pretty high up. And the reason I made it high up is so that if people decide to jump out during island spawn, they die, they aren't able to get down here. So that's up to you. The other cool thing about this area is when people spawn, if they're in here and kind of walking around, again, remember this stuff isn't going to be here, but when they're walking around, they can kind of look at the map and see what they're getting themselves into, right? Oh, okay, I'm going to spawn in one of those huts, and there's a windmill in the middle, so this is kind of a cool map to play. And it looks like we're going to have to rotate down, but they won't see these circles, so they won't really know where the rotation is. But they can at least see the map from this hut area. Alright, these are the player spawns that spawn you into this area when you enter the rift from the creative hub. So you don't need this many. I have a little bit of OCD, so I just kind of put one on all the edges, but really maybe 6 is a good number. If you have too many, it's not a big deal. It just allows people to spawn into the island quicker. If you only have one and people are trying to jump into the hub, it puts them in one at a time, so it sometimes is slow. And I'm sure you've all been in those maps where you jump in and it takes a while for everybody to kind of be created. It's because they're waiting for these player spawns to become available in order to spawn in the island. So make enough, but like I said, about 6 is usually good. I have way more than that. Alright, so how do you get these? Alright, so these are going to be your first player spawns that we're going to put down. So again, we're going to go back into that inventory menu. We're going to go to devices, and then we're going to look at starting devices, okay, on the left here. So devices, starting devices, and you're going to look for the one that says player spawn, and you're going to put it in your trap area. So you're just going to click it and drag it down, or I think if you just hit A on your Xbox controller, that will also put it into your inventory. Either way, you want it in this trap inventory, okay? And then you're going to come back out here. Okay, so now you're going to not have your phone out, you're going to have your pickaxe out, okay? And you'll see that it's in my trap inventory in the bottom right. So to place it, I'm going to basically do just like I build in regular mode. I'm going to hit Y for the trap, and I'm going to place that. Now, one thing to notice is that my trap only has 1 there because these are single item items. Single item items, I guess that's the way to say it. Basically, every time you add one to your trap inventory, it only adds a single item. So if you wanted to make more than one of these from your menu here, you actually need to double click this again. It gives you an extra 5, double click it again, it's goes to an extra 5, so now you have 11, so on and so forth. But then when you get out, now you have 11 in your inventory and you can create multiples. Alright, so I'm going to place this so I can show you what it looks like initially. Okay, so now that it's placed on the ground, we have to go and make a little bit of a customization. Alright, so I'm going to pull my pickaxe back out, and you can see as I get close to it, it says press E to customize spawn. Again, on controller it's going to be a different, but for keyboard it's whatever your customized keybind is. So we're going to hit E, and it brings up this menu about the player spawn. So these basic options up here, there's 5 different things here that you can press. The first one is basic options, the second one is all options, third one is modified options, the fourth one is channels, and the last one is search, so you can start typing. Now we're gonna basically go to the basic options for this tutorial, but further down the road we're gonna get into some of the other options when we start editing these things and adding channels to make Zone Wars work the way we want it to work. So we're gonna look at basic options, and we'll go into all options as well to set these. So you can see team any. This just means that anybody can spawn into this. Use at island start, yes, because we already said that these are going to be where everybody starts. And visible during game, we want to put to no, so that they don't actually see the pad, they just spawn into the building. We're going to go to all options here. Again, enable during all phases, yeah, that's fine. So that means anybody can spawn at any time into the island, not into the game. Any team, no priority group. We're going to use at island start. We said yes. Visible during games, no. And then here's some channels that we don't have to worry about. All right. The last thing is, let's see. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. The under team, you want to actually set this to none, because they haven't gotten a team yet until we start the game. So we want to spawn this to none, because otherwise, if we leave this as team any, what's going to happen is the players could potentially spawn up here when you start the game, and then they wouldn't get weapons, and they wouldn't really be in the Zone Wars game. They'd actually also be in Storm, the way I have mine set. So you want to set this to team none, and that's what actually makes this red and says 99 on it. So while it may sound counterintuitive to set this to none, meaning that you don't spawn into it, you actually do want to set this to none, because that is how we spawn people here at island start only, and then we use a different player spawn once we start the game. Okay, so let me get rid of this one. Of course, now I got rid of my floor, but we'll just replace that quick. Okay. So now that we've got our player spawns, we have a way for people to get into the island. Good, great. If you failed to put these here, by the way, if you don't have spawns elsewhere that say island start, they would basically just spawn in the sky and they would fall into the island. And so for Zone Wars, that doesn't really make sense. So you don't necessarily want that. Okay. So the next thing is we need to create some player spawns for the huts, which is where once you start the game, the people will spawn. And it depends on how many people you have, but again, we have 16, so this will be somewhat random, because if you only have 5 players, it's only going to spawn the 5 players. So again, you place a player spawn here in your hut, and then we're going to customize this player spawn also. So this is where we're going to have team any. We're also going to enable this during all phases, no priority groups. We are going to have this off for island start, and that just means that players can't spawn here when they enter the island from the hub. This is only going to allow people to spawn when you start the game. So you want to have this as an island start no. Also not visible during game, so the player won't actually see the pad. And then we're going to leave everything else to no channel initially. I'll show you what this is in a later video, but basically you want to leave everything else default. Alright, hit OK. And now you're going to do that times your 16 huts, which is tedious work, but you're going to do it. You can go in here, create one, copy it, and then paste it to all the different huts so that you don't have to keep going into the settings, but you do have to fly around and actually put them in the different huts. Okay, now we have our player spawns. So now your next question is, great, we have players, they have no weapons, there's no storm phases, so on and so forth. And that's true. We haven't created any of that stuff yet. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually add some stuff to the island. So just like I have this staging area with the buildings, we can go ahead and create additional staging areas or delete this one and create some new ones. With any of the gallery things, any of the prefabs, depending on how your island depending on how you want your island to look. So for me, my island's pretty basic right now. I put just a few things here. I put some tents. In those tents, there's actually some chests, some hidden chests that allow people to get some additional materials and ammo and healing items. I have some of these items around just for harvesting, right? Like if people want more metal, they can harvest these. If people want more brick, they can harvest the huts. If people want more wood, they can harvest the trees, so on and so forth. I didn't want to fill the map too much because this is Zone Wars after all, and you don't really want people to have too much time to collect this kind of stuff. So that's why I created mine the way I created it. Additionally, I wanted this to look like an island where there was some sort of an army that maybe abandoned the island but left some stuff behind, like this broken down helicopter and this signaling tower, some radio towers, and a windmill that they used for power when they were here. But again, it was based and a water tower. Again, it was based on a Lucky Landing look with military presence, and they left the island. So you can do whatever you want, however you want to make your island look. This is creative after a while, so be creative. Again, be wary of filling it with too much stuff. You can always add to it later. You can always delete from it later. But be wary of adding too much stuff because it can get pretty cluttered pretty quick. And if you've been in any of those islands, you realize they're not fun because all the other players collecting things and either annihilate you, or you're the player collecting things and you're annihilating anyone, and that's really not fair gameplay in my opinion. So whatever, just be wary of how you're making your island look. Sometimes less is more. Alright, so after you create your island and everything is set, you have your player spawns, you have your ability to spawn into these huts. We will go ahead and address some of these things like block zones, some weapon spawns, some storm zones, and how you score Zone Wars in future videos. So go ahead and hit that like button. Follow me also on twitch.tv /Deesarmy. That's DEESARMY. I do a lot of streaming. I am an older dad of 3 boys and 1 stepdaughter, and we play lots of custom games. We play lots of squads, and it's really a good time. You know, there's just a lot of fun. But also follow me on YouTube for more videos like this. And the other videos in the Zone Wars. Thanks for watching.